Did you face this?
No, not in Sattari.
Ah, okay.
I faced it in Darbandoda area.
Okay.
Where the politicians wanted to construct a road through forest for transporting mine ore.
Right.
Which I did not permit them. Being DCF, I myself went and stopped.
I'll draw your attention to a couple of observations made by the NTCA fact-finding report when they came here after the deaths of the tigers in 2020. I'll just read it out to you and tell me how you feel as a forest officer, because it's a severe indictment on the entire forest community and community of officials. I'll just read this for the benefit of our viewers. All of you all know what the NTCA report has said, but I'll just read this so that our viewers can also note. The references that the NTCA sent a fact-finding committee after the death of 4 tigers in Sattari, in Madai in 2020, and they gave a very strong report and a severe indictment on the government. It says, the report says, it gives an impression that wildlife management appears to be a subject that is of least priority for the Goa Forest Department. One observation. Second observation, not all is well with the management of the Madai Wildlife Sanctuary. According to Madai wildlife activists, presence of tigers inside the Madai WLS is a well documented and well known fact. The High Court in its para 56 of its judgment reflects this particular report and states, the NTCA expert committee reported that unfortunately even after more than 2 decades since the Madai WLS was declared as a wildlife sanctuary, it was managed on a completely ad hoc basis, as no management plan existed for such an important sanctuary of the Western Ghats. And then the court judgment also quotes the NTCA report and reiterates, it gives an impression that wildlife management appears to be a subject which is of least priority to the Goa Forest Department. What do you feel when you read these words as a forester?
No, you see, as we were discussing, and as it has been clearly mentioned in the judgment, there is no mention of consequences of not abiding by the law. You know, if NTPC is saying something and asking us something, and if we are not doing it, who is going to do what to us?
Right, correct, absolutely.
That feeling in my mind makes me to keep quiet. Let them do. They are doing their work. I will do my work. This is a simple thing. But those who are having some the will to do something, they do. Others don't do.
Does this brazenness surprise you, Norma? This absolute brazenness in.
You know, as the Goa Foundation, we have had a very, I will say, close relationship with the Forest Department in earlier times. I am talking 20-30 years ago. Milind Karkanis was there also as a forest officer, because forest officers were there to protect and defend the forest. This is my experience of 20-30 years ago. Today, I am not so sure, not because the forest officers are not committed, are not knowledgeable themselves, but somebody seems to be sitting on their heads. So it's become a question of what Milind is saying, if there are no consequences, why stick my neck out?
Right.
The court asked NTCA officer, lawyer this.
Right.
You say you issued a direction to the Goa government to set up a tiger reserve. They did not do it. Couldn't you do something? And I am sorry to say that the NTCA official, the lawyer, after consulting with whoever was sitting in the audience, said that, well, what can we do? We have to wait for them to do something.
But he himself knows that he has the power of 38.
He has the power. He has the power.
Yes.
And that is why the court even said that in your meetings which you are holding, please discuss your powers. You are issuing directions. Please discuss what powers you have. The powers under the Act, especially a chapter for tigers, introduced in 2006. Prime Ministers chairing your meetings. This is a premier flagship project, Project Tiger. And here is a state which is told to set up a tiger reserve, which folds its hands, does nothing for 7 years, and now when the court is about to take a judgment, sends a pipsqueak reply through the state board saying we don't want a tiger reserve for Goa.
And
what is this?
And what do you make of the reaction after the judgment? The immediate knee-jerk reaction of going.
We will appeal.
Yes.
We will appeal. You have not even read the judgment. At least the Advocate General had the courtesy and the decency to say, let me read the judgment and see if there is a ground. Let me read. But the minister was immediately, we'll appeal the judgment. Of course, everybody can appeal a judgment. That's the law is set up in that way. But I think that if you go to the Supreme Court, it's not just a question of what the state government wants. It's a question of the NTCA directing you to set up a tiger reserve, having consulted with all other factors. Because remember, Sujoy, 31st March 2016 is a kind of watershed letter as I see.
That's right.
Events were there which led up to it. It didn't come out of nowhere.
Correct.
And pursuant to 31/3/2016, NTCA 3 times does things to Goa.
Correct.
It sends a reminder.
Right.
That Debashri Swain came and visited.
That's correct.
He was told that we have decided all 4 sanctuaries.
Right.
It then comes when the tiger deaths are, and in 2022 last year they again sent one more reminder.
Right.
So 31st March 2016, which the Goa Foundation said was a recommendation,
right,
the NTCA said was a direction. It is a watershed moment.
Correct.
Before and after.
Correct.
That is how it is. So why, when there is so many reminders, so much of evidence which is being placed before you,
right,
and you got 4 deaths on your hands,
right,
proof, you
correct,
cannot say that they are not there.
Correct.
And the tiger corridor is vital for tiger movement. There is a tiger reserve in Kali, there is a tiger reserve in Bhimgad. There is Goa which is acting as a corridor, and it is required because otherwise if a tiger reserve gets too crowded, overcrowded with the population, the males have to move and find new areas. That is the law of nature. That is the law of nature.
Just, I'll like to point out 2 paragraphs from the letter that Jairam Ramesh wrote to Digambar Kamath, and I'm particularly keen to point out this letter because there were 2 reactions from Digambar Kamath and Alice Sequeira, former Environment Minister, in our paper, where Digambar Kamath says, don't ask me, ask the government. Digambar Kamath, who's currently a BJP MLA. Alice Sequeira actually went on to say that there is absolutely no justification, or he actually said that there is no support for a tiger reserve amongst the people of Goa. I will contrast these 2 statements from just 2 paragraphs in Jairam Ramesh's letter. Ramesh to Digambar. In a study carried out in 2008, the Wildlife Institute of India has pointed out that the protected areas of Goa and the contiguous forests in Karnataka and Maharashtra are possibly some of the best potential tiger habitats in the Western Ghats region, and they are in need of protection. This is Jairam Ramesh to Digambar Kamath. In the next paragraph, he says, I understand there is considerable local community support for the creation of a tiger reserve and for wildlife conservation. By declaring Madai Wildlife Sanctuary as a tiger reserve, we would also ensure long-term protection of biodiversity-rich areas. This is a Congress Environment Minister writing to a Congress Chief Minister with a current MLA who happens to be in the BJP now, saying that there is no support. I just wanted to point out this irony of how local politicians who have the power to ensure that a proper mandate of forest protection is carried out are actually nullifying it by ignoring and turning a blind eye to facts that are very, very clearly available. Ranjima, your quick response, and I'll go on to 2 important issues: double tracking and the Madai River, and before we end this. So one is, what do you make of this, of politicians completely, almost running away from the judgment?
Yeah, they are running away from the judgment because they want to support the ideology of a politician who want to destroy all this forest, wildlife. I remember that once upon a time, this area where the Madai Wildlife Sanctuary is created, it is the breeding taking place of the tiger,
right,
and you can see the 2013, the Dr. Ullas Karan, the well-known scientist, internationally acclaimed, he has mentioned that tiger that was camera trapped by the forest department and reconfirmed by his team, Dr.
Right.
Samba Kumar,
Right.
is unique, and whatever database they were having, it is not recorded.
Right.
it is from the Goa region. So Goa is not only the tiger corridor, but it is the perfect habitat for the tiger, and that is why you can see the Wagh Dongor, Wagheri, Wagh, all this is there. So these people, politicians, they believe that they would going to win continuously, and they are fooling the voters and giving them jobs, tall promises which could not be fulfilled. So they want to carry forward this agenda.
Two important issues. Do you think this judgment is also going to probably be a savior for our mother Madhi? Because once it's declared as a tiger reserve, do you feel that this will become a small, big handle for argument to protect Madhi? Because the diversion of the waters from the Madhi itself will not be possible under this protection.
I can cite you a simple example. Goa government, when the DPR was approved by the CWC, immediately they wrote the letter to the Ministry of Environment and Forest, because in the newspaper I wrote the article that where the Karnataka want to carry the work of the Kalsa, Bhandura, Haltara and Sulla project.
Right.
All this area is a tiger corridor,
Right.
and this is not my finding.
Right.
This is the finding of the Kankumbi forest range of the Karnataka.
Right.
So immediately they wrote to the ministry, Goa government wrote to the ministry,
Yeah.
when the EC was in process to be given to the Karnataka.
Right.
At this juncture,
Right.
the ministry issued the show cause notice to the Karnataka.
Right. Right.
This is tiger corridor.
Correct.
Give your say. Now the EC, which was in process, got held up.
Right. Correct.
So what happened now? We were telling Goa government, use only one shield, that is Madai Wildlife Sanctuary,
Yes.
to protect. And because of this Madai Wildlife Sanctuary, now Karnataka, as per new plan, as
Right.
per the revised DPR, they earlier it was just 317 meter away from the Madai Wildlife Sanctuary. Now the new site is 3 kilometer away from the Madai Wildlife Sanctuary.
Right. Right. Right.
You can see, and earlier the size, the length of the dam was very big. So now they reduced to the 10 meter, 5 meter. So this has happened only because of the tiger, only because of the wildlife.
William Bob, do you think Madhi will get saved because of this judgment?
Now, as far as my personal appreciation goes, there is nothing to be saved as far as Mahadai is concerned.
Why do you say so?
Mahadai already diverted. Mahadai river is already diverted. Now save Mahadai, we will not give any a drop of Mahadai to Karnataka. It's useless, meaningless this is. They are already diverted. Already water has gone. To what extent it actually serves their purpose, God knows. But it is really doubtful, because the place from where it has been diverted doesn't have much source,
Right.
much heavy source.
Right.
Partly comes to us,
Right.
but very small part,
Right.
and other part, but that whole part itself is very small.
Right.
So whatever goes to Karnataka, to that Malaprabha river,
Yes.
is very small quantity.
Right.
So now there is no scope to reverse it now.
Right. Right. Right.
So only advantage will be no. Now see, there are 18 tributaries of Mandavi
Right.
in that full basin.
Right.
So they have plans to divert all of them. That they won't be able to do.
Right. Right.
That
Very
they won't
important
be able
point.
to do.
Yes.
This is important.
Okay. Now we're coming to the end of our discussion. Two quick points. One is, of course, we just want to touch upon the issue of double tracking, because the court also in one of these paragraphs spoke about the whole double tracking from the Castle Rock area.
Yeah.
And they said that there was a I think there was a Supreme Court judgment in a Goa Foundation petition also, where they actually said that because of the presence of the forest there, the double tracking itself cannot be allowed.
Actually, when the double tracking was the all the three infrastructure projects,
Linear projects, yes.
Goa Foundation sent a complaint
Right.
to the Central Empowered Committee,
Right.
and the Central Empowered Committee came and made a visit to
Right.
the Bhagwan Mahavir Wildlife Sanctuary,
Right.
that area.
Right.
And they made several remarks about coal and so on.
Right.
One of them was about the fact that this area is tiger area.
Right.
Why did the state board not take the opinion of the NTCA before it made the recommendation to the to allow
They should have got a
they should have gotten it, because
Right.
in the case of Karnataka,
Yes.
they went to the state, to the NTCA, and
Right.
NTCA said no.
Right.
Whereas here, they did not go to anybody. They made their recommendation, passing it, as Milind has said, that
Right.
matters come, nobody presents it, nobody is there who strongly presents a case, matters just get approved. But they did not take NTCA permission, knowing already that these letters were there with the Goa government.
Correct.
There is a recommendation already with
That's
the Goa
correct.
government. So that was also carried by the Supreme Court in its judgment, saying that NTCA approval ought to have been taken, and they stopped the railway line in that sense from there till they did a fresh study.
I'll just quote from para 22 of the Supreme Court judgment, which Advocate Norma is referring to. The landscape in which the railway line is proposed to pass is an important tiger corridor connecting the three states of Goa, Karnataka and Maharashtra. The report prepared by NTCA regarding the viability of such a railway line is only for the Karnataka part of the project. No such report has been prepared for the Goa part.
Yeah.
So this is what you are actually
That is
referring.
what was said.
Yes.
That it's the same railway line.
Yes.
Karnataka is taking the permission.
Correct.
You are not taking any permission. You are simply giving it.
Correct.
When the NTCA has recommended a tiger reserve for Goa also, and it's a tiger corridor, very important.
Okay, now last point, I'll refer it to both of you, and then Norma will finally conclude. You see, what has happened is that there is this constant discussion over the settlement of forest dwellers, and they're all along saying that the forest dweller settlement needs to be done first before you do this. And what has happened is, for years and years and years, I think for 54 years with regard to one sanctuary, and for 24 years with regard to another sanctuary, from the time the sanctuaries were notified, forest rights have not been settled. And I'll quote from one very strong paragraph from the judgment. It states that when it comes to determining and settling the rights and claims of forest dwellers, the state of Goa has defaulted in compliance with the time schedule specified in the Wildlife Protection Act. Further, the state of Goa, in defiance of directions of the Honorable Court dated 22/8/1997, has failed to determine and settle the rights of forest dwellers. In the next paragraph, the judgment says, the state of Goa, please hear this carefully, wishes to take undue advantage of its wrongful acts of defying the statutory timelines and the express directions of the Honorable Supreme Court on this subject. Such an excuse can hardly be countenanced. Based upon such reason, and by trying to take undue advantage of its lapse, the state is not justifying in not notifying the said area as a tiger reserve. Now, if this is not the last word on the subject, quoting the Supreme Court as well, and accusing or very clearly directing the state to take its various actions and blaming the state for defying Supreme Court directions, I don't know what else can be the last word on the subject. Rajan Babu, your comments.
When the sanctuary notification was issued, only 31 villages are there. But remember, misconception is created in Goa that the people who are residing, the villager residing in this area, had to be rehabilitated.
Right.
So this is totally wrong and misleading,
Right.
because while preparing this notification, only the forested area, for example in Kopade, only one survey number is there.
Right.
In Naneli, only one survey number is there. So these areas will be included into score, and the rest will be in the buffer zone.
Yes.
Now, why these issues are created, I don't understand. So you can see out of these 31 villages, Kadwa, only two houses.
Right.
Then the Wangini, 4 houses are there.
Right.
So these houses, families could be rehabilitated in Nanoda.
Right.
And the rest villages like the Jhadani, Pendral, then the Kiraude, Hanjune, Gule and Ponsuli. Or no single house is there, no single family reside as per the census of the government. And then why government is opposing the idea of creation of the tiger reserve is totally disgusting for us. So whatever mentioned by the court is a reality, and Goa government does not want to settle the right of these people because they are fully aware that this is encroachment. How they could legalize some of the encroachment?
Your final words on
Yeah, since long the process of settlement of rights as per the Indian Forest Act 1927 and the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, this process has been should have been completed by now. At that time only, within 2 or 3 years, maybe maximum 5 years.
they are not 54 years and 24 years.
54 they are not taking it. Nobody is taking any call on that. But I have myself requested the concerned authorities in the politics.
Now, for final question.
It was not done.
Right. Before we end, the final question is this whole narrative that because of this notification, proposed notification or directed notification, the rights of the forest dwellers are going to be impacted. Now, of course, we know that they have not been settled so far, but even at this point of time, what do you have to say to this this whole apprehension?
I think simply a bogey is being raised
Yeah.
that a lot of people have to go out. Where will we rehabilitate them? Where will we put them, and so on. The fact of the matter is that when the Tiger Reserve was being notified, in fact, even when the Made Wildlife Sanctuaries was being notified, they kept all the settlements out as
Right.
much as they could.
Right.
In the Tiger Reserve, when it was demarcated,
Right.
there is a specific note sent to the Chief Minister
Right.
to the State Board,
Right.
saying that all the habitable villages have been kept out.
Right.
And
Right.
there are a few areas, few houses, I think it says,
Right.
which are within the Tiger Reserve area. If they are in the core zone, they can be resettled in the buffer zone.
Right.
And if they are in the buffer zone, they can remain there, because the buffer zone has to keep people there, because the Project Tiger is also promoting tourism,
Right.
wildlife viewing.
Right.
You need people in that area. So none of the people have to go out of that area. Moreover, the only thing that is happening is that the status changes. It's a
Right.
name which changes.
Right.
From being a wildlife sanctuary, it now becomes a tiger reserve.
That's right.
And that change of status enables the Goa government to draw vast amount of monies from the central government, which can be used for the rehabilitation of people, for giving them better facilities, for employing them as forest guards, as guides, as many things. So it's advantage all the way. And I am glad that despite what the politicians have said, which you have quoted, there is a vast public support in Goa, as I've seen in the newspapers and so on, support for having a tiger reserve for Goa. That gladdens me no end.
Yes, indeed, and I think this discussion has also gladdened anybody who loves Goa, its forests, its wildlife, and this will have its ramifications all over the country. We are really short of time, but I think we must end with a great note of optimism, and the fact that if the right causes are fought for, we always have at least one pillar of democracy, which is the judiciary, and the other pillar of democracy, the responsible press, which will together take this fight. But ultimately, we must understand that these fights are won if there is a groundswell of people's support, which has been there in this particular case, and that gives us a lot of optimism as this fight goes on. But I think we must all bask in this victory, where not only our forests, but our tigers, but our future has been protected. And I think the generations that come after us will have to thank us and people like Norma and Claude for whatever they have done. Thank you very much.